Howdy, and welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. This is episode 148 with Tom Paladino. He is an expert in scalar energy or scalar light, which many of you probably never heard of, but it's basically the energy that the sun creates and the stars create. And it's a quantum field, or as he says, the consciousness of the universe that activates our body's innate healing ability. So we talk in depth about the energy fields. We talk about being able to heal in just different manners than what we would normally think of in traditional medicine. And the work that he is doing is founded in work that Nikola Tesla started, and he is like taking it to the next level. Like, it's amazing. And the word that he uses that I grasped onto and made a connection with was the energy's instruction for our body to be able to command itself to heal, to command itself to do the things that we need to do. That it's an energy field, and it's that energy from the sun is instructing us to do things, just like the plants are growing from the energy from the sun. It's more than just the sunlight itself. And so I thought it was fascinating. There's a ton of great information. He offers a free 15 days with his laboratory. And so pay attention to that and find out how to get that 15-day free trial to be able to use and learn how the sun's energy and the energy field can positively impact your health and help with the imbalances that are going on in your life. He can find those through his lab work and help you. And he goes into how all that works. It's quite amazing. So it's fascinating work to me. I find it amazing that our body can do so many different things if we just tap into the resources that are there. And one of those resources is scalar light. And so we talk about that. And Tom Paladino again is the guest, and it's just amazing to have him on. So welcome, Tom, to the Confidence Through Health podcast.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
So you have got research into something that I think is a key to people's health that we don't fully understand as a general public, right? Like, you understand it, and as we were talking before, like it's a rabbit hole, and there's science behind it that you can go down and deep, and there's so much we can go into. But when we're talking about like scalar energy, and so you say that to somebody on the street probably has no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
So break that down for the normal person before we begin to like dig into it.
It's so simple. And before we get into it, let's just make sure that people understand that this is a new and emerging science. It's valid. Nikola Tesla was the first man to control scalar energy through instrumentation. So I'm trying to walk in the footsteps of Nikola Tesla in some fashion. Scalar energy, what are we speaking about? It's another energy besides that of electromagnetic energy. There's two energies. Maybe you were not taught that in college, but it's real. Why? Well, I've experimented with scalar energy, and it's not electricity, but it's very valid. It's real. So scalar energy, it's from the sun and the stars. What does that mean to us? It means this is an unlimited source of energy, clean, pure energy, no carbon footprint from the sun and the stars. Now, Nikola Tesla, the first man to develop and scalar energy instruments that can control and broadcast it, so to speak. It was a wireless transmission of energy. And Tesla, in his day, called it radiant energy. The key factor is this. When Tesla was working with scalar energy, there was no power plant.
Right.
If you look at his Wardenclyffe Tower in Long Island, New York, it was only a copper dome, okay, that surmounted this tower. And that copper dome captured solar energy, stellar energy. So Tesla was able to capture sun energy, star energy, free energy, and he was able to use that in some type of kinetic potential, some type of ability to use that energy to power either a car or to illuminate a light bulb.
Right.
Tesla was on the verge of solving the energy crisis. He was very close.
So is this is this the same? Well, and I mean, there's two things I really want to ask about, but I don't want to get off track. But like, one is that I think a lot of people, and me myself, was like, wait, we're talking about energy from the stars as well. Like, I get the sun because like it's huge and bright, but like the stars as well
Yes, of course.
giving us the same energy.
Exactly. So if we look at the billions of galaxies, the trillions and quadrillions of stars, the infinite number of stars, we realize the universe is awash in scalar energy.
Wow.
It's filled with scalar. It's an infinite supply of scalar energy.
Right.
And if our sun is just one of the stars, it is, and
right.
there's quadrillions upon quadrillions of stars and perhaps the number of galaxies.
Right.
You see how this really is, to put it in the vernacular, a no-brainer. There's no reason why we should not tap into this radiant energy or zero-point energy or scalar energy to power everything. Tesla was very successful. He employed that energy as free energy to power various instruments and various, if you will, a car, again, a light bulb, etc. So what is my point? We're going into a new era, a scalar energy era, in which we're going to leave behind electricity. It's outdated, frankly.
Right.
What I really find quite a poignant remark that I'm going to make, if you will, if I may say so. Yeah. Tesla abandoned electricity later in his life. Tesla was the author, was the founding father of the AC electricity. Right. But later in his life, he was no longer working with AC electricity. He was working with radiant energy. Now, you have to ask yourself, why would the world's foremost electrical engineer give up on AC electricity in preference of working with scalar energy?
Right.
He saw the potential.
Right.
And consider that's a poignant remark on my part, but I stand by that. Tesla gave up. He's no longer interested in AC electricity. Many people don't realize that, but that's a fact.
And we're talking about different than like it, because I'm envisioning like a solar panel, but a solar panel is taking that energy and creating electricity out of it.
Yes.
And so we're not talking about that. We're talking about just using it straight from the sun.
Exactly. Now, what I've observed, what other scientists have observed, that scalar energy is the initial energy of the stars.
Right.
So if there's two energies, how do you make a count? Well, one of the energies has to be the first energy, and the other energy has to be the derivative.
Yeah.
So scalar energy is found at the very center of our sun. And Tesla went on to remark, I remember one of his assistants, he said, I can hit a switch and I can turn the sun on. Well, that's a poetic license, but what was he getting at? What was the animating force of the sun? Scalar energy, or what he called radiant energy. Why would he call something radiant energy? Well, it's everywhere. It radiates, if you will, the universe. So, this is theory, I realize that, but I'm going to boil this down into practical application later in the hour. I'm trying to lay the groundwork for the audience. This is real.
Yeah.
And if we follow this trajectory, we're going to solve our problems. So if you're listening to this podcast, bear with us. We're going to solve problems. Energy is fundamental. And if you work with scalar energy, you have fundamental control over nature. Mm-hmm. And this is what I've discovered. And it's going to be quite a tool in the future once we realize what it can do.
Well, and I mean, I think we all know what it can do from the standpoint of we see it in nature. Right? Like the plants that come back every year when the sun comes out in the spring, the sunlight's around, and so things grow a lot more. I mean, if you don't believe in that, like just how many times do you mow your yard in the summertime versus in the winter, I mean, like it's growing more, you've got to do. And so I there's got to be that same connection with us in the sun, right? Like the sun's got to be able to do things for us from a health standpoint.
Exactly.
And it sounds like it's coming because of that energy and not necessarily the sunlight, but more of the energy input that we're receiving.
Yeah, exactly. I've always thought that the animating force for all biological life are not electrical impulses. That's just the side effect. That's the result. There is a life force energy. It carries instructions. So what is scalar energy? It is the supercomputer, so to speak, of the universe. It carries instructions and instructs everything. I believe scalar energy is the divine instructions of God. And I believe we have to look at, if you will, that cause and effect relationship in the world, in the universe, to finally understand not only biological life, but all branches of the sciences. Mm-hmm. The animating force is always light, energy. What light is that? You have two choices. It's scalar energy. Right. Scalar light is the animating force of everything. It's the fundament of the universe.
So it's not necessarily like, yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, you've got the doctors that in vitamin D is a huge thing right now, right? Because of everything we went through with COVID. And so people are like, oh, vitamin D's down. You get it from the sun. In the phrase is you get it from sunlight, right? Yes. And so your body's converting it and all that. And I think back to, the different stories that came out then about, like, oh, well, when people were sick and they're in the hospital, they got better results if you took them outside and put them in the sunlight. But was it not necessarily the sunlight, but it was more the energy, because they're getting it directly. You're not shaded from, being inside indoors and not getting that exposure.
It could be all of the above.
Right.
It could be all of the above. So, to look at the work of Tesla and how I've, if you will, modified his instruments. Mm-hmm. I now have Tesla instruments in my laboratory. Those instruments are capable of improving biological health. I think so. Yeah. But I call it quantum health. The reason I make that distinction, I'm not working with Newtonian physics.
Right.
You cannot find a college textbook on scalar energy. I think it's suppressed to this day. So what am I getting at? I'm going to cut to the chase. I work with photographs. This is my photograph. If I wanted to work with myself, I would actually take my photograph, which is energy. It has a source of light. And my signature found on this photograph, I could place it inside a scalar energy instrument. And I could send myself quantum well-being, quantum energy to improve my health, my spiritual, mental, and physical health. Now, this is not obviously an in-person session. Right. You've never gone to a dentist and say, here's my photograph, performed an oral exam on my photograph.
Sure.
So I want to make this very clear. I'm a scalar energy researcher. I do not work with conventional medicine.
Right.
This is quantum wellness. You can call it quantum medicine if you want. It's a new branch of physics, and hence the way we actuate this is not in person, but through a photograph. Right. So it's a force field. I work with force fields. I don't work with people. But I have great results from the testimonies of people. Now, what am I getting at? People from around the world will email me a photograph. It's my contention that everybody has a scalar energy envelope or some type of aura or spirit or some type of non-physical presence. Remember, I'm not working with flesh and bones. This is not biochemical. It's informational. And when I'm working through some person's photograph, I can actually balance their 7 chakras on the photograph. I feel that. I can sense that with my instrument. Right. A person can feel that their 7 chakras are being balanced. So the question now is there a connection between the photograph and the person?
Right.
If there is, you cannot prove that by Newtonian physics.
Right.
This is not Newtonian physics. The only way you can prove if there's a connection between a photograph and a person is through scalar physics, a new branch of physics.
Right.
Is that possible? I think so. Perhaps some people in your audience have heard the term quantum entanglement. What does that mean? Everything in the universe communicates with itself. Right. Everything, every object, every photograph, every molecule, grain of sand, every car, every person, every cow, every horse is all in constant, instantaneous communication with one another. This is known as quantum entanglement. Right. So it's not a physical connection, it's a communicative connection. Right. It's an informational connection. Now, if my theory is correct, again, I cannot prove this by Newtonian physics. If my theory is correct, by placing my photograph inside an instrument, it is as if that person was teleported or bilocated inside my instrument.
Oh, wow.
So a person doesn't have to go to a dentist.
Right.
A person does not have to go to a clinic. By taking a person's emailed photograph and placing it inside an instrument, that person teleports or bilocates to my instrument. It's as if that person was inside my instrument. By the notion of quantum entanglement, you don't have to physically come to my laboratory. You can send your photograph to my laboratory, and it's similar or perhaps identical to a person being inside my laboratory.
Right.
Well, we've made this easy. Why not email a photograph or email a photograph of 20 or 30 people?
Right.
Today in my laboratory, we miniaturize the photographs. Let me give you a prelude to my comment.
Yeah.
Today in my laboratory, I worked with 500,000 photographs.
Oh, wow.
So we've begun this pathway to global healing in this Christ consciousness, in this realm of non-physical, non-local information.
Right.
Now, I know that's a lot to take in, but Tesla proved it with his instruments. I am proving it with my instruments. I'd like to show the audience one of my instruments that I work with. Can we see that?
Yes, we've got that.
Okay. That's one of the scalar energy instruments that I work with. That instrument is able to access a different dimension, a scalar energy dimension.
Right.
And you can see on the very left of the screen, there's 2 Tesla coils. And again, modeled after Tesla's work, we're able to create a scalar wave and then broadcast it, so to speak, or amplify it. I should say amplify it with those 2 Tesla coils on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, this instrument allows, again, me access to the scalar energy dimension. We're no longer working in an electromagnetic dimension.
Right.
And if you can imagine, there's another instrument to the side of those coils in which we can actually physically place a photograph of a person or an animal inside that well or inside that receptacle. And in so doing, by way of a photograph, we're able to access a person's quantum being.
That's cool. Like, and you said a couple things in there that, like, I think for somebody that maybe, you know, is looking at this going, oh my gosh, this sounds a little bit, but there's several things that definitely make sense, because, like, there's a connection we all share, like, especially when you get close to somebody, as far as an emotional contact with somebody, and there's a connection that you share with them that if you truly can quiet your mind and quiet your soul, and, like, you can feel connected to them when they're not in the room.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Like, especially if somebody passes away, like,
yes,
you know, like, I feel connected to them still, even though they're not physically here, because, like you said, their aura, their energy, that's still here. Right. And, like, their impact, if you will, on that quantum level is still here. And so I mean, I'm tracking with you, because I see that happens in so many areas of life.
Yes.
And sometimes we count it off as a coincidence, or as a hokey feeling, or, you know, a spirit. But I think that there is a level of connection, and it sounds like it's at that scalar energy level. That's not something that's normal physics we've been taught, but it's that next level of energy that you're discovering and working in, that is what is the connection to all of us.
Yes, thank you. Now, I'm going to give the audience the upper hand here. Everybody who's listening to this is a scalar energy expert. I promise you. Everybody, you may not have heard the term, but scalar energy plays a factor in every moment of your life. Now, thinking. Do you ever ask yourself, why do we think? How can we come up with a creative thought? It's instructions. Where do the instructions come from? Scalar energy instructions. What am I getting at? Scalar energy drives is the animating force of all thinking. Right. Any cognitive thought. Memory, creativity. Okay. Emotion. Your heart is a scalar energy vessel. Mm-hmm. So we are scalar energy experts. Congratulations. Right. Everybody who's listening to this podcast is a scalar energy expert, whether you realize it or not. Right. What drives the mind? Scalar energy, scalar instructions. What drives the heart? Emotions, scalar energy, scalar instructions. So this is how important it is to grasp onto this.
Yeah.
This is the animating force of all spiritual, mental, emotional, physical activity.
Right.
Everything needs an instruction. Everything. When you drive your car, whether you realize it or not, you're instructing your car by steering the car, by braking, by accelerating. Those are instructions. Well, the universe, God has designed that the universe likewise has an infinite number of instructions. Otherwise, the universe would be chaos.
Right.
So what am I getting at? Scalar energy serves as the instructions for everything.
Yeah.
This is why Nikola Tesla dropped electricity.
Yeah.
This is why the world's greatest AC electrical engineer was no longer interested in electricity, and he began a new career in what he called radiant energy.
Well, and there's a big point right there in that, like, you don't just drop something that is that big at that moment to go in a completely different direction, because there's so many reasons that you would think the average person would go like, why would I give that up? That's right. There's so much, there's potential there. It's just not as big as the potential elsewhere. And so, and he saw it. And it sounds like there's so there's so much we need to know. Like it sounds like there's just this infinite, that you're just scratching the surface of what's possible. And I watched some of your videos, and one of the things that I thought was just fascinating was the connection, because you mentioned the wave of energy, the connection between the wave of scalar energy and DNA.
Yes.
Like, I saw your video on that, and I was like, wow, that right there was like, boom, that there is definitely a connection to how the sun's energy is instructing us and helping us, like, become healthy or unhealthy, depending on how we use it.
Yeah, thank you. So to further that point, scalar energy is a double helix. If you can imagine, it's the same composition, same ratio and proportion as DNA. So what's my point? A scalar wave maintains DNA. It's been photographed. So there are some photographs of scalar energy in which you will see a double helix.
Right.
And it's a certain time-lapse photograph. So it's not a waveform. It's not a sine wave. It's a double helix. And if you look at that, it's the same ratio and proportion as DNA. So I've always concluded that what are the instructions behind DNA? It's scalar energy. Why do we have this DNA molecule, and it's always in place? It is always maintained. It has to have constant instructions to constantly monitor and to form and to maintain that double helix.
Right.
Well, that's scalar energy.
Right.
That's how important this is. So if let's say God decided to change the scalar wave, we would have no genomic forms.
Right.
You know, if you cut off scalar energy, you don't have a genome.
Right.
Okay. There was a great scientist, Antoine Priory. He was developing a scalar energy instrument, a very powerful instrument, in which people within the vicinity of that instrument, he found that these people no longer had cancer. You know, many people called that the cure for cancer.
Right.
Well, how did he do that? It was probably a very strong scalar wave in which he was able to, within that location, provide a correction for an addition, a deletion, or a substitution of a base pair. If you can do that, you can cure, remedy, call it what you will, cancer. Now, this is a matter of record. The French government financed this gentleman, Priory, but it never went anywhere. You know, there was politics behind it. He never had the sufficient funding.
Sure.
So I don't want to digress too much. So scalar energy is the fundament of the universe. What do I mean by that? It's the instructions of the universe. So if that's true, and if Tesla really discovered free energy, okay, let's move forward. What are we waiting for? That's
Right.
good. I want to solve problems.
Right.
So now I'll describe to the audience the problems that I can solve, or at least in theory, I say that I can solve problems. I'll give the audience a for instance. I'm working with an HIV clinic in Delhi, India. The clinic is called Om Prakash. Om Prakash.
Okay.
And God bless, this HIV clinic in Delhi, India, has sent me over 5,000 photographs of people who at one time were infected with HIV.
Okay.
Now, in so doing, I've had great success working with these people. And everybody at this clinic at Om Prakash is now telling me that they no longer have a viral load.
Oh, wow.
They have no viral load. Now, this is their comment. It's not my comment. And it's very encouraging what we're hearing coming out of this clinic, Om Prakash. And if we can continue in this vein, my goodness, I think we're going to. I think we're really going to make advances here, and the people around the world will see the benefit of this program. Right. Om Prakash, the people at Om Prakash are telling us that their health has been restored. Well, that's music to my ears. So that's one of the benefits we can see from this incredible endeavor at Om Prakash. I'm going to try and find a photograph for the audience. No, I can't find it. Let me move on.
So on this clinic over there, so they sent you pictures.
Yep.
And you're putting them in your laboratory, and you're putting them in your. So how long? Obviously, I would assume it's going to be different based on the severity of what you're dealing with. Yeah. But how long before you start hearing from people like, oh my gosh, I feel the changes, or it's showing up in my lab results, or how long of a process does this take for it to get back to the person from the photograph?
Yeah, that's a good point. So most people are telling us that they feel better within a short period of time. Within a couple weeks, they're saying that they feel better.
Okay.
I would say, on average, if it's HIV, within 2 or 3 months, the people are telling us that they feel better, that they no longer have any viral load after 2 or 3 months of experiencing their first session. I'm going to hold this up.
Yeah.
This is a photograph of the clinic, some of the people from the clinic. This gentleman in orange, his name is Sahil. In 2017, he sent me his photograph. He's been negative, no viral load since his first Scalar Energy session. And he was positive. He was HIV positive for 13 years. So
oh, wow.
I'll let the audience decide the efficacy of my work and whether there is a cause and effect relationship. I, for one, cannot prove my work by way of Newtonian physics. I've been approached by many people, and they ask me to prove my work. And I tell them, you cannot prove this by way of electromagnetic theory. I don't work within the electromagnetic spectrum. So go to the results and ask the people if they feel better.
Right.
Well, here are the results. After working with 5,000 people at this clinic in Delhi, India, Om Prakash, everybody feels better. Everybody. And those who had a follow-up PCR test, all of those tests now are not detectable. No detectable viral load.
It's amazing. So, and so before you were talking about the 7 major chakras and 12 meridian points, and just explain that for the person that doesn't know anything about what their energy level is, what their internal energy level is, what you're actually looking at to try and help with there.
There are 7 chakras. They spin. Why? Right. Because they're scalar energy vortices that spin. Right. So what are the 7 chakras? They're points of information. They're 7 spinning vortices. And if you access those with the scalar energy instrument, you can influence that spin. You can influence those instructions. So imagine God gave us these 7 chakras, perfectly aligned, perfectly able to send out instructions and maintain homeostasis.
Right.
And it always begins with an instruction. So the 7 chakras are the 7 instructors of the body, of the mind, of the soul. There you have 7 points of scalar energy instruction. Now, many cultures embrace that concept.
Right.
In Western medicine or in Western thought, it's not really embraced or not at least aggressively yet because you cannot measure it.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to measure consciousness. You're not going to be able to measure scalar energy. So there's some things you have to accept by either tradition or by looking at the cause and effect relationship.
Right.
A chakra cannot be measured. If you're looking to perform some type of mathematical computation, abandon that thought.
Right.
It will not be achieved.
So is that one of the stumbling blocks, if you will, that's like preventing this from becoming a big, because because our culture is so much into you have to measure this, you have to measure this, you have to like where, as opposed to, like you said, with the clinic over there, like, okay, well, just go ask them.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Like, but since there's not a, step 1, step 2 measure, step 3, step 4 measure, since there's not that kind of back and forth, is that one of the biggest things that's preventing this from becoming more wide scale?
Yes, it is. Yeah. The fact that this cannot, according to Newtonian physics, be measured, be observed, because it's invisible energy, and you cannot measure this divine energy. There's no basic unit. How do you measure the animating force of the universe? You can't. You cannot measure consciousness. You cannot measure the omnipresence of God. So the hurdles are, it's a new science, scalar science, that's not embraced. It's quite different. The laws of scalar science are not the laws of electromagnetic energy.
Right.
It cannot be measured, as we've mentioned. You cannot even see it. It's invisible. You can feel the before and effect after things. Right. So, I thought after working with 5,000 people at the clinic, Om Prakash in Delhi, India, if you want to vouch for my work, go to Om Prakash. Ask them. Ask the people how they feel. 5,000 people have sent their photograph in, and those 5,000 people have successfully had what I call a pathogenic cleanse, at least in the spiritual realm, at least by way of this quantum realm. The upshot is this: they all feel better.
Right.
Now, should that not be noteworthy?
Right.
Should the scientific community pay attention to that?
Well, I think that, like, what comes to mind is that, like, the unexplainable, right? We all hear about this. Somebody goes in and they've got a diagnosis for stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, and the doctor's telling them you've got X amount of time left, and da 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 da. And they go back and they're like, no, I'm not taking this. And not that they're changing things in their health as far as like nutrition or exercise or whatever they're doing, but it's just that also that them telling themselves and that over repeating and that mind over matter. It's not necessarily mind over matter so much as it is scalar energy over matter, is it?
Yeah, I agree. It's scalar energy, which is the mind. Again, everybody has your mind, your heart are scalar energy vessels. So I don't want anybody to ever cut themselves short. Everybody is a genius. Everybody has incredible potential because God gave you, you're made in the image of God, and God gave you that mind and that heart. And what am I trying to do? I'm trying to uplift mankind.
Right.
If scalar energy is the unifying energy, then scalar energy should unify mankind.
No,
so
it's true.
People would just grasp this and accept this. If I've accomplished this much in my lifetime, what could we do with 1,000 researchers, with 10,000 researchers?
Right.
That's the point of our conversation today. I want to instill into your audience that this is real, that these are scalar energy instruments, that everybody that I've ever worked with, after I worked with a person who has HIV, everybody's told me they feel better. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, their follow-up PCR test is negative, what they call not detected, undetectable, undetectable. Now, if I can do that for 10,000, 20,000 people, is this not noteworthy? I would hope so.
Yep. So is there a way to, like, say, for instance, it's cloudy here, right? Right now. And so, like, And I know that in the wintertime, a lot of people get, what seasonal affective disorder and things like that, which I know because I've suffered from it before. And I know it's like, I've got to get out and see the sun, like, right. And so is there, and this may be like a stupid question because we talked about the stars bringing it. So it's not necessarily just the sun, but like, is there like a prime time that we should be like experiencing, time directly from the sun to get like a peak amount of scalar energy? Or is it just like, you just have to acknowledge that it's there and acknowledge that your energy field is going to absorb it?
Everybody's different, so that it's hard for me to give a uniform answer to that. But I would say that judging a person's mood and their disposition, some people need that sunlight. So even if it's winter, and if you can get out around noon or 1 o'clock when it's warm, I realize sometimes it's cold in the winter. And even if the sun's rays are attenuated, it doesn't matter. Try and get out in the sun. I live in a warm climate, so I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But that goes to maybe bolster my argument that yes, scalar energy, this life force energy, without it, life is insipid.
Yeah.
Life is dull. I want to encourage the audience that our website, we give away 15 days of free session. The only way I can convince people is by you convincing yourself.
Right.
Again, you're not going to find a textbook on this. My instruments are unique. My approach is unique. I don't think anybody is traveling this path that I am.
Yeah.
So this might be the only scalar energy lecture of this kind you ever hear in your lifetime.
Right.
And that doesn't, God bless all the scientists in the world, but that's not their calling. So the only way I can get the message out there is through a podcast like this, or I have a 15-day free session on my website. Please avail yourself of the free session, and you will experience the benefits. You will see that something has changed in your life, all through the interface of your photograph.
Right.
It's quite fascinating. Try it.
So from a biological standpoint, I know that the pineal gland is influenced by receiving sunlight through your eyes.
Yes.
And I've never been able, I've heard this from a different medical professional, but I've never been able to find it myself. That there was a guy who was experimenting with sun gazing in the morning as the sun going up, when you can actually look at the sun for a long time without damaging your retinas or anything, and at sunset, and he had increased the size of his pineal gland, which was influencing the amount of nutrients that he was producing himself, and therefore he was able to cut back and hardly eat at all.
Yes.
Because his body was creating which when I saw your video with the DNA and I was like, oh my gosh, to me that's a connection.
Yes.
To me, that's a connection, that if the energy has got the same wavelength, if you will, as our DNA, the same makeup, that it's got to be in that situation, has got to be influencing more than just what it's doing to the pineal gland, but he was receiving that much energy at morning and at night every day.
Yeah.
That his body was basically feeding itself, creating the nutrients and feeding itself, which I find is just amazing.
I'm going to make 2 points, and maybe you've heard this. The pineal gland, it's a mystery to us because there's not really biochemical pathways.
Right.
So many people think it's more of an information system, and I think there's truth to that. That it's sending out some type of scalar energy instructions. It's along the 7 meridians, and the pineal gland really it's probably its artful design is the ability to send out instructions to us.
Yeah.
And that's the pineal gland is a powerful scalar energy force field. And then you're right. Many people can assemble nutrients by stargazing.
Right.
If I wanted to assemble a nutrient, I would actually take a photograph. That's vitamin E, and I'd actually place it inside the instrument. And the instrument, which is my stargazing instrument, would interpret, would instruct vitamin E then to download into me.
Oh, wow.
So some people might stargaze or sun gaze, and they're able to transmute micronutrients. I transmute micronutrients through my instrument, which is a stargazer, and I can download vitamin E through a person. So this is the new science, instructional science, and it's all non-physical. Whether a sun gazer has the ability to transmute or create nutrients, that's all done by way of the mind and the heart. Okay, it's a non-physical action.
Right.
Or I can do it by taking a photograph of a vitamin E, and instructing this force field to download into me.
Right. Well,
it's analogous.
I mean, to me, it's making sense, because just simply from you using the word instructional, like, that changed my mindset in regards to how this is all interacting with me. Because if I'm at the subconscious level, at the energy field level, if I'm receiving instruction from other energy, and to me that makes sense, because it's like, if I'm not, I don't want to say strong enough, but if I'm not at a good, healthy point, and I interact with somebody with a bad aura or bad energy, then I start to feel that, and I go down that route. And I'll, take some of that bad energy and move it on. And we've all seen this in grocery store lines or whatever, when somebody's interacting poorly, and then we're like, we receive that and go, oh man, our day's crap too. And
yeah,
like,
you're right.
Nothing happened to us other than just interacting with somebody who was in a bad mood.
Yeah. I don't know why people do that. If I'm in a grocery line, I'll say a prayer, I'll make a phone call to a friend, because you're just standing here. You might as well make it productive. Don't,
right.
People at a red light, they get in a tizzy. It's a red light. What are you going to do?
Right. But if our energy is getting instruction off of their energy, because they're, if you will, more powerful at that moment, or whatever it is, they're, like you said, because we're all bouncing energy back and forth, and we're all interacting together on that quantum level. That, to me, that is making a lot of sense on the instructional level. When you say it that way, that to me is explaining a lot in how we interact with each other, and making me think about how I need to be more aware, when I'm interacting with other people.
Yeah. We all have good days and bad days, but I think the world's starting to realize that in many ways you make or break your life. Not only a good day or a bad day, but if you want to be moody throughout your life, you're going to be moody.
Right.
If you want to see the abundance of nature, and you want to see the miracles before your very eyes, every day is a miracle to me.
Oh, sure.
And I try and have some type of goal or some type of positive aspect. I have great days. Whatever chaos there is in the world, I can guarantee in my home, in my laboratory, I have a productive day.
Yeah.
Every day. And it all comes down to me.
Right.
And to your audience, again, everybody, you're the captain of your ship, in your mind, the way you think, in your heart, these scalar energy instructions, you make or break your life in many ways.
Yeah. And so, like, when you look at, scalar energy from the standpoint of, to go back to, solar energy and the connection or the difference between the two, is there one of the things that I mentioned, I've got a cousin who went to MIT, is a big time engineer, worked for NASA for a little bit. Last time I saw her, I was like, when are they going to come out with like solar cars that are just, like the solar panels are on the roof, and we don't have to worry about stopping or charging or anything, because it's just charging all the time. Right. Yeah. Like, is that something that like scalar energy could move in that direction?
Oh, sure.
To like power things?
Oh, sure. Tesla apparently had a car in Buffalo, New York, that was a scalar energy car. And he was he took the combustion engine out, and he had some type of antenna that captured stellar energy, solar energy. And he apparently achieved a top speed of about 90 miles an hour in this car. Wow. And the car was silent in operation, because you're operating on solar power, on stellar power. And the point that I'm making is he achieved that.
Yeah.
He had a free energy car. We should have listened to him.
Right. Oh, well, and then I mean, like you said it before, it goes back to politics. It things like that. It goes back to, you know, if you can't make money off of the sun, or they haven't figured out how to do it yet. Right. It's going to take that person that's going to figure out how to do it and how to be able to make money off of the abundance of the sun being there all the time.
I heard a story. I don't know how accurate it is. J.P. Morgan and the Rothschilds were providing some financing for Tesla, and they were interested in this work. And ultimately, Morgan figured out that Tesla was on the pathway to free energy. Yeah. And he became very intimidated. You know, the Rothschilds and the Morgans wanted to make money off of people.
Right.
So they took away his money. They would not even consider financing any of his work moving forward. And subsequently, the Morgans and the Rothschilds started a smear campaign against Tesla.
Right.
Well, why? You know, I'm sure your audience is astute. If this is so good for mankind, if it's free, clean energy without a carbon footprint, and we're all looking for some type of solution to the energy crisis,
right?
Well, why did the Morgans and the Rothschilds stand in the way of finding that solution for the energy crisis? Well, because of their machinations. On that political scale, they're not our friends.
Yeah.
Tesla was a great friend, but the Morgans and the Rothschilds are not our friends.
Right.
The world has to come to this understanding there is a great deal of suppressed technology. And who's that benefiting? It's not benefiting me or you, Jared.
Right. No, I fully agree that there is that there's a lot more out there that's capable of being done. That it's simply not just like we said, just because there's not a way to monetize it yet at the scalable level. And so it's whether it's being suppressed or it's being hidden or, you know what, I mean, I fully agree that's an issue that we have right now. Because life could be a lot easier for a lot of folks. I think,
yes, it could.
You know, with the stuff that we can do, I mean, I think you have to be hiding under a rock to not know that there's more out there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So yeah, as we move forward, this is my contribution to humanity. I claim that these instruments are able to, if you will, pinpoint. I'm able to look for a microbe. If I took a magnified photograph of herpes, and I place it inside the instrument would look for the signature of herpes in me.
Right.
And a photograph of a microbe would download into my photographic dimension and destroy herpes in my body. But it's a quantum body.
Right.
It's an informational body. This is not, there's no pain here. Why? There's no discomfort. Why? It's not a chemical process.
Right.
It's an informational process. So there's no allergies here. There's no pain. There's no die-off. Why? I'm sending information into the photograph, which is my bilocated version. I bilocate, or people bilocate to my laboratory by way of a photograph. Does it work? Well, according to the 4,000 testimonies I've received, it works.
Right. Yep. No, I believe it does. The way you've explained it, and from what I already know about how our energy fields work and what our body's capable of do, if we feed it right from a nutrition standpoint, that nutrition is also, I fully believe we should be eating a more plant-based diet than anything else, and that nutrition is getting the energy from the sun and then providing it to us. And we're taking that in an instructional base, way, as far as this nutrient turns on these genes, turns on da-da-da-da. You go down that rabbit hole from the biological standpoint. It makes total sense that there's other avenues for that energy to work as well.
Yeah.
So
with my work and what I present to as far as quantum healing, I'm able to identify and eradicate microbes. I'm able to balance the 7 chakras. And yes, these instruments can transmute nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, etc. So I'm going to encourage your audience, go to my website, scalarlight.com. you will upload your photograph, and you can send in photos of family members with their agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Include your pets, dogs, cats, if you have a horse or livestock, and then you be the judge. For 15 days, we will identify microbes and eradicate microbes, balance your chakras, and then assemble over 350 nutrients.
Right.
Most people, I've worked with millions of people around the world, the greater majority of people say that they feel better.
Yeah.
Why? There has to be some valid science behind this.
Yeah, there has to be.
This is beyond auto-suggestion.
Right.
You cannot prove, again, my work by way of electromagnetic theory. I don't work with electricity.
Yeah. So besides your website, how can people get in touch with you, follow you, social media, that kind of stuff?
At the bottom of my homepage, we have all of our social media sites. I think the best way is just to funnel people to the website. I want people to see the validity and how simple and easy this is by way of my homepage.
Right.
Hey, Jerry, I thank you for this opportunity to speak to your audience. The key, awesome. my work is, if you will, geared to helping mankind. If you want to help us, my vision is eventually we'll be working with 500 million people a year, maybe 1 billion people a year by photographs.
Right.
Nothing can stop a photograph. I want your audience to realize that the day is coming we will work with 500 million people a year, perhaps eventually 1 billion people. We will be able to secure their photograph and then send them energy in the quantum realm and improve their health, at least their quantum health, through a photograph.
Right. It's amazing work, and it makes so much sense. And I appreciate the fact that you're providing another avenue for people to be able to take control of their own health.
Yes.
And not be reliant on, which is another thing that I think is a problem in our world, is being reliant on the pharmaceutical companies and the medical system that is in a lot of cases skewed to be able to keep customers for life. And I understand the theory behind you don't want to cure your customer and have them go on their way, but you sort of do if you're a medical person, I think. So
let's say this. If I keep my vision pure and I just want to help people and do God's will, and I don't let money or the pursuit of fame come into the equation, then this healing ministry will flourish.
Yep.
Okay. People are smart.
Yeah.
People, just as the saying goes, follow the money.
Yeah.
If you see people in one particular industry or some type of endeavor constantly chasing a dollar sign, constantly advocating money or sales, well, then you have to ask yourself, is that to my benefit?
Right. Yep. Very true. Well, Tom, I greatly appreciate your time. I will link a connection straight to your website in the show notes so that people can connect with you and take advantage of that. That it was 15 days to be able to experience it and see. And I think we both agree we need to tell people just to spend a little time outdoors in the sun, in nature, and get away from while the technology is great, get away from it for a little bit and let your energy field be natural with the sun.
Yeah, thank you. We have to do that.
Yep. Thank you so much.